On a freezing November night in a quiet college town, four friends were murdered inside a hillside house that everyone in Moscow, Idaho knew by sight. The killer slipped past a dog, past two sleeping roommates, and out into the dark. He left behind almost nothing, except a single snap button on a knife sheath. That tiny circle of metal would pull a PhD student out of a classroom and into a cell. November 13th, 2022. It's the end of a long Saturday on King Road. Upstairs, best friends Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan fall asleep after a night out. On the second floor, Zana Kernadal and Ethan Chapin return from a party, order food, and settle in. Two other roommates are home in their rooms. Sometime around 4 a.m., a figure moves through the house. One surviving roommate later tells police she saw a man dressed in black, with a mask covering his nose and mouth, and bushy eyebrows. He walked past her toward the sliding door and disappeared into the night. It takes hours for anyone to understand what happened. By around noon, a 911 call summons police to a nightmare scene. Four university students are dead. No gunshots, neighbors say. No forced entry that stands out. No obvious suspect. A city that never locked its doors suddenly double-checks the windows. Detectives start with the house. They map prints, fibers, and blood, bag anything that could carry DNA, and collect the dog that somehow wasn't harmed. On the bed beside two victims, they find a leather sheath for a large fixed-blade knife, brand stamped into the material. The sheath has a snap button. On that snap is a tiny, partial male DNA profile. It's not enough to type a name, but it's enough to start a hunt. Outside, there's one more clue. A camera down the street catches a white sedan moving past the house again and again in the hour before the murders. It's a Hyundai Elantra, early 2010s. Detectives don't know who's driving, but they know the car is circling. In a college town where thousands of cars come and go each week, the white Elantra becomes a lighthouse in the fog. Moscow police ask the public for help. Tips flood in, most of them dead ends. Across the state line, 15 minutes away, a graduate student at Washington State University parks a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra. His name is Bryan Kohberger. He's 28, a PhD student in criminology who studies how criminals think and how they get caught. He teaches undergrads how to collect evidence. He talks in class about the mind of a killer. License plate readers and campus cameras eventually bring the white Elantra trail onto WSU's Pullman campus. Investigators build a timeline. A white sedan leaves Pullman before dawn, crosses into Moscow, and returns after the killings. They request cell tower records for tens of thousands of phones that connected in the area that night. Most devices show normal patterns: home to bar, bar to bed. One phone registered to Kohberger goes dark in the early morning window, then reconnects on the drive back toward Pullman. Prosecutors later say that same phone had pinged near the King Road neighborhood a dozen times in the months before the murders, usually late at night or early morning. Inside the lab, the DNA profile from the snap button moves to the front of the line. Traditional CODIS searches don't hit, so investigators try what more and more cases rely on: investigative genetic genealogy. Analysts build a family tree from that tiny profile and search public genealogy data, looking for relatives. The branches narrow toward a family in Pennsylvania. By mid-December, the white Elantra is national news. Moscow police ask for every similar car to be checked. People send in plate numbers. Detectives triage the flood. Meanwhile, Kohberger finishes the semester, packs the Elantra, and drives home to the Poconos with his father. Along Interstate 70 and I-80, troopers twice pull them over for following too closely. In the cruiser cam videos, the son does most of the talking, while the father explains they've been in a long drive from Washington. Neither stop results in a ticket. Both stops help investigators keep track of the car as it moves east. Back in Pennsylvania, the FBI and state police begin quiet surveillance. They watch the house. They collect trash from the curb. In the paper garbage is a piece of DNA that, according to court documents, is consistent with being the father of the person whose DNA was on the knife sheath snap in Idaho. That's as close as you can get without swabbing the actual suspect. On December 30th, 2022, just before dawn, law enforcement executes a warrant at the house. Neighbors wake to lights, shouting, and armored vehicles. A graduate student in criminology is taken into custody on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. Inside, agents collect a laptop, a phone, dark clothing, a knife in a sheath, hair strands, and more. Out in the driveway, they tow a white Hyundai Elantra with Washington plates. In Idaho, a judge unseals a probable cause affidavit. The public finally sees the outline of the state's case. There's the white car circling the neighborhood, the surviving roommate's description of bushy eyebrows, cell site data of a phone that allegedly went dark during the murders but had been near the house on earlier nights. And there's the piece prosecutors call a crowbar, DNA on the snap button of a knife sheath found next to 2 victims, matched by genealogy to his family, and then, they say, directly to him. The story ricochets around the world because the details feel like fiction. A criminology PhD student studying offenders and digital forensics. A white car caught looping in the fog. A phone that vanishes from the network just long enough. A tiny circle of metal on a sheath that outlived everything else in that room. But a story isn't a verdict. In court, Kohberger is extradited to Idaho and pleads not guilty. His defense team challenges the DNA genealogy steps, the cell site analysis, and the weight of the video evidence. They argue the phone data can't put a person inside a house. They suggest the sheath could have been touched earlier or transferred. They file motions to suppress and seek more lab records. Prosecutors announce they will seek the death penalty. Hearings stretch on. The trial date slides as both sides prepare. While the case moves, people look backward, searching for patterns. Classmates describe a meticulous student who could come off as intense, even cold. Some recall a teaching assistant who graded harshly. Others say he seemed ordinary and helpful. Police reports mention that months before the murders, a white Elantra was captured near the King Road area late at night. Was it coincidence? Scouting? Confirmation bias? Until testimony and cross-examination put evidence under lights, everyone's stuck at the same distance, the border between what's known and what's alleged. And then there's the house itself, 1122 King Road, where students once laughed on the deck and posed with the view. After the murders, it stood as a hollow landmark. Visitors left flowers. True crime pilgrims took photos. The university announced it would be torn down, then delayed, then moved forward. Each update reignited a debate. Preserve for trial visuals or erase a building that had become unbearable to look at. The most chilling part of the timeline is the drive. According to the affidavit, cameras and traffic data trace a white sedan leaving Pullman around 2:45 a.m., entering the neighborhood and leaving a short time later, accelerating out of Moscow. At 5:25 a.m., a white Elantra is seen on a highway south of town, heading back toward campus. The route takes 18 minutes at speed, longer if you're careful. The idea of a killer cutting through neighborhoods and state lines while the sun is still thinking about rising is the part people can't shake. Investigators say the suspect's phone later revisited the crime neighborhood around noon the next day. If true, that suggests curiosity or habit. In the weeks that followed, the phone crossed the country to Pennsylvania. The case followed it. No case like this belongs to one city. It lives in hard drives and court calendars and a community's muscle memory. Parents still ask about locks. Students still look toward that hillside when they drive past, even though they can't see the house anymore. Every filing, every hearing notice, flips the wound back open. As the legal process rolls on, the facts sit in 2 stacks. In one, the state's narrative, car, phone, DNA, timing, a surviving roommate's description, a sheath beside a bed. In the other, presumption of innocence, questions about transfer DNA, debates over genealogical methods, and the reality that nothing in a court is fully settled until a jury says it is, if a jury ever does. What makes this story unforgettable isn't just the horror of that night. It's the collision between a murderer's toolkit and a modern investigator's toolkit. If the allegations are true, a person tried to turn off his digital shadow and outthink the system. If the state's evidence holds, a camera, a cell tower, and a snap button said otherwise. A crime that started with footsteps on a narrow staircase became a map made of pixels, pings, and probability. A community that once left doors unlocked now locks them twice. 4 families keep photos on mantles and wait for a courtroom answer. And the tiny piece of metal on a sheath, found in a place where nothing else should have been left, waits with them. Until a verdict arrives, this remains what it has been since the morning of November 13th. A case built from small pieces that together feel enormous. The white car, the dark house, the phone that goes quiet, the DNA that speaks anyway. A town that will always remember one address on a steep road, and a question that only a jury can close.